Maybe I should ask you that. Let me just ask you, what is your favorite movie of all time?
Oh boy, I was not
Of all
prepared for this.
time. Yeah.
Favorite movie of all time.
If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, Dom.
Oh, I didn't stay ready. um, wow, Noah, I don't know if I can.
No, take your time.
6.5 hours later.
I mean, it's literally just a favorite movie. Like, my God, man.
Yeah, but I don't watch a lot. Because I could give you a cheesy ass answer.
What's that?
Well, like Forrest Gump is obviously great.
Why would that be a cheesy answer?
Because I feel like that's just a world-renowned movie, and that was my easy way out if I said
You know,
that.
there's a lot of people who hate that movie.
Really?
Yeah, there's like a growing like amount of people who hate that movie.
I had never even seen
Actually,
it
you
till
know
I was
what?
about
Let's
19.
stop there. This is good. Let's keep it on that because I love Forrest Gump, but the last time I watched it, there was something that has always bothered me about that movie, and I can't get past it.
And that is?
The running scene. That scene makes absolutely zero sense. Let's
And that's
just
like the
think,
scene.
well, no, just think about it. Just think about everything that happens in that scene.
Hmm?
So this man ran across the goddamn world.
Yeah.
He talks about how when I was hungry, I ate.
Mm-hmm.
When I was thirsty, I drank, or whatever the fuck he says. And he's like, when I went, or when I needed to go, I went. When I slept, or what? I'm fucking it up. But you get my point. Like,
Yeah.
he's like saying how he did all that. He ate, drank, sleep. Like he paid for all this stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How was he paying for it, Dom? I
Oh.
understand he was apparently one of the first investors in Apple, in his opinion, fruit company.
Yeah.
Um, However, those checks were being mailed to his house.
And he was not at his house.
So what? You telling me that he just had a ton of money on him to be buying this shit every day and paying to basically run across the globe? Or was it the fact that he came up with every great trend and idea of that time period? When this man steps in a pile of dog shit and one of the people running next to him is like, he goes, "Oh man, you just stepped in a pile of shit." And he goes, "It happens." And he goes, "What happens? Shit?" And he goes, "Yeah," and keeps running. Shit happens.
Yeah.
Then he gets a bunch of mud on his face, and someone hands him a yellow t-shirt, wipes it off, and somehow it makes a perfect smiley face on the. So then that guy's like, "Holy shit," and just recreates the smiley face name.
Hmm. You
That
really just
scene
opened
has
up a
always
can of
bothered me.
worms.
That scene has always bothered me.
And
A
rightfully
fruit
so.
company. He said a fruit company. Talking about Apple. And the checks are being mailed to his house.
And he's just running.
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA show preview edition. Once
Yeah.
again, Dominic, we are here to give everybody that good to send them
Mm-hmm.
into the weekend. Did I say it's Friday? It's actually Thursday. And there's
Yes.
a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
PFL's tonight. PFL's back. It has been a tumultuous last few weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Where we left the PFL just a few weeks ago and where we picked them back up, we feel like we're dealing with a completely different company. They've made huge moves with Francis Ngannou, and 10 of their fighters tested positive for PEDs. So, interesting times. But
Yeah.
also, Dominic, we're going back to Canada for UFC 289.
Mm-hmm.
Probably it's not a strong pay-per-view from like a star power
Right.
perspective, and even from like a top to bottom like deepness, it's not exactly a strong pay-per-view, but I can't help it, Dominic. I'm so excited for it. Even sitting here today, I'm just counting down the days. I'm like, I can't wait for all of it. especially Oliveira Dariush, the fight everybody is excited about. The fight that you're probably buying the pay-per-view for, let's be
Yeah.
honest. However, Irene Aldana in the main event, a chance to make it four Mexican MMA champions or UFC champions, excuse me. That would be just, I mean, that would literally be
Bonkers.
the thing that we set up at the beginning of the year, Dom. Little did
Yep.
we know that we'd actually have a chance to make all four of them happen. Like,
Imagine we parlayed that, Noah.
yeah, seriously. So a lot of good stuff to go over today. But as always, Dominic, I have to ask you before we begin, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. And it's funny, we talked about Forrest Gump a little bit ago because remember that time in the movie where it just nonstop rained and rained and rained? And that's what he talked
Mm,
about. Well, it's the complete opposite here because I ain't seen rain and I couldn't tell you how long. It is drier than the Sahara Desert out here. Hopefully, we get some more rain coming through. But the weather this week is very beautiful. Low 80s, high 70s. The BFB
mm.
boys out and about getting the content done. I've heard from a little bird that even Big Dave is going to venture out onto the golf course with me this week. Now, will he be on film? That's a different question, but at least we're getting him to the golf course. So it's been a good week. I'm feeling good. I'm excited for this weekend, and I know that you are preparing for vacation. This is Noah vacay mode,
Mhm.
and in full effect here. I'm excited for you. Are you excited to get going on your vacation?
Dom, I mean, please. Don't make me say it a second time how excited I am for vacation. I mean, what a question. Are you excited to go on vacation and not work for almost 2 weeks? Let me think about that one, Dominic. No, but yeah, as you guys are watching this, I will be finishing up my last day of work before I make that drive home. And then Saturday, we make that drive to Florida, baby. I will
Mm,
become a Florida man. I
yep.
will walk barefoot through the Everglades and tease the Crocs, all that. Shout out Fishing Garrett on TikTok. That dude cracks me up. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. Big Dave's got to get in the video, Dom. I mean, you got to
Dude.
make that happen. Now that you've teased it, like,
Mm. Phew.
what is he acting like he won't do it?
It's a good point. I might just have to ask him point blank, period.
So wait a
Put the
minute.
pressure on him.
So wait a minute. You're saying, who knows if he'll be on camera? It sounds almost like right now, it's not because Big Dave doesn't want to be on camera. It sounds like it's because you're worried of what Big Dave being on camera could do to you.
Yeah, maybe I'm too afraid to ask Big Dave to be on camera. That could be the root of the problem here. I I will keep you in the community posted if he
Yeah.
ventures onto the scene.
I also found it interesting you're talking about good weather. I just found out this morning because it had been like no sun the last like 3 days.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I figured you had the same weather because
We've had a
my
little overcast with some sun.
so I found out today that apparently the overcast is not just due to your normal, I don't know, clouds blocking the sun. I don't know that shit. Apparently, Dominic, there are wildfires or
Mm-hmm.
forest fires out in Canada, and that smoke is what's causing the overcast.
Yeah, New York's really bad. I saw pictures of
Yeah,
it
apparently
today.
people are wearing masks and stuff over there because they have to. So,
Scary stuff.
yeah, everybody stays safe. But I was like blown away by that. Maybe I'm just an idiot, Dom, but I kind of just thought that, like, the states on a map, I thought that was basically like a big old wall. Like, just you can't,
It can't.
like,
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
can get in, nothing can
Right.
get out. So, I mean, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know where to follow us on social media. You can follow our podcast on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at the Bajma, the BAJ MMA. You can follow Dominic on Twitter, Instagram at DSLEE14. You can follow myself on Twitter, on Instagram at Noah Baker MMA. Also, if you want to listen to audio versions of the podcast, you can do so by following us on Spotify, on Apple. There, it's at the Below Average Joe's MMA Show. And you can also subscribe, click the bell, all that shit on YouTube at the Below Average Joe's. No MMA Show after that. That's the channel name. But if you see some of our MMA show videos, you'll know you're in the right place. Also, release schedule upcoming. So Monday, Of course, we will be recapping all this weekend's action. I should have mentioned Friday. So tomorrow, we actually do have something coming to you. It's our latest Cage Side Rewind, Dominic. Pride 13 collision course, a big one. We are branching out. First non UFC event for this segment. So, very excited for you guys to check that out. And then a week from that, so a week from Friday, will be another preview. For that one, we'll be talking about PFL 5, Bellator 297 in Chicago, and then the Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier fight
Triple
night at the
header.
Apex. So, a lot going on. But Dominic, we got a lot to get to. So are you ready?
It all starts in Canada, my friend.
In your main event, the women's bantamweight title is on the line, as is history, Dominic. Amanda Nunes comes in to minus 320 favorite. She is undoubtedly the best women's fighter of all time. She got her title back in dominant fashion against the woman who took it from her, Juliana Pena, the last time we saw her. Now here she comes back in. She's 35 years old, going up against Irene Aldana, who has a chance to make it 4 Mexican-born MMA champions in a single calendar year. That would be unprecedented for Mexico, a country that has a huge fighting spirit, but mostly on the boxing side. MMA has been a bit of a slower growth and kind of bringing over some of that talent. Now it seems to be paying off. But Irene Aldana's got to get it done. She's a plus 265. She will not be the biggest underdog of the 4. Obviously, Alexa Grasso was able to get it done. So, with that being said, though, Dominic, Irene Aldana actually older than Amanda Nunes. What do you think about that? 2 months older. So that whole, I don't know what that stat is. That 2-29 thing I always talk about in title fights. That doesn't apply to the women. So I don't know what their record is. I actually think it probably, I don't know if any woman has won past the age of 35. Because if you look at all the champions we've had, like who's been like an elder, I mean, Carla Esparza might have been getting there.
Yeah, that's
Joanna,
true.
maybe. I mean, I don't know if anybody's really gotten close to that. So
Yeah.
I was hoping when I first saw Amanda Nunes was 35, I was like, oh shit. I said, I'm gonna jump on Aldana on this money
Mm,
line. And then she's older. So
yeah.
Dominic, you have a battle here, 35 years old apiece. What's kind of the X factor here for you? I know, spoiler alert, you do have a bet on Irene Aldana. So I'm curious what is kind of pulling you in that direction.
Well, I do believe that the Mexican MMA champion, UFC champion prophecy must be fulfilled. And that
Mm.
means Irene Aldana has to dethrone the greatest female fighter of all time. Outside of that, though, I really do think, at least on like in my head, I see this being relatively competitive despite that minus 320 line. And believe me, Amanda Nunes could very much so prove that statement that I just said very, very wrong. But I like Aldana here. She's won 4 out of 5. She has momentum, especially now when you look at her fellow countrymen and women that are winning these titles. That's got to be some added motivation, some added fuel to that fire. And she's looking better now than she really ever has. I mean, she's finished 3 of those 4 wins. She's finished 2 in a row. The only loss in these past couple years is to Holly Holm, and that was the best version of Holly Holm that I think we've ever seen, outside of maybe when she beat Ronda for the title many moons ago. So I don't foresee her just getting absolutely smashed here. And I think with Amanda talking about retirement again, and not necessarily that she's like going to do it after this fight, but she kind of discussed when she was close to doing it, decided not to. She bounced back and fought Juliana Pena in their rematch. I think Aldana just is a much more difficult fight. I think she's a higher level fighter at this point. She's bigger, she's stronger physically. I just think there's more advantages that Aldana can have here to beat Amanda. And if Juliana did, whether you think it's a fluke or not, anybody listening, she did beat her. And I think the same can happen for Irene Aldana here. I'm relatively excited for this matchup and to see if after all these years Aldana has put all of the tools together to dethrone such a dominant long reigning champion, Noah.
So I'm going to preface what I'm about to say by saying I am excited for this fight. I take back, when we were first discussing who she would be fighting next, we thought it would be Aldana. Then it was announced as Pena. Then it became Aldana again. I remember saying, like, well, what's the bigger fight? Pena seems like the bigger fight. You finish that trilogy, Pena's beat her, yada, yada, yada. However, now that it's getting closer, I don't feel like I would have been this excited for that trilogy bout.
Mm,
I don't know. I felt like I prefer seeing a fresh matchup. And Irene
yeah.
Aldana is an exciting fighter. She's got an interesting style, good stand up game, which could give Amanda Nunes some fits here.
Mhm.
With all that being said, I'm not buying it, Dominic. I'm not buying this wave um, of confidence from the community in Aldana's chances here. I think she's a good fighter, but I've yet to really see where she can challenge Amanda Nunes.
Mm,
If she's going to challenge her on the feet, Amanda has shown that she will wrestle. She will take her down. If Irene wants to play that game, then Amanda will start you on the feet. I just still believe in the talent of Amanda Nunes. Even at 35 years old, there was that hiccup. You're right. The Juliana Pena fight is always going to be something that sticks out in the
mm,
back of anybody's mind because she looked so much worse of a version of herself than we had ever seen. But I feel like everybody remembers that and forgets the fact of what she did in the next fight. She came
mm,
out there 50-44'd her, or shoot, I might even been worse than that. Destroyed her for 5 rounds.
yeah.
Showed like that she hadn't slowed down at all. So Dominic, if I'm being honest with you, I've heard a few people mention that kind of theory that you're throwing out where it's like, almost feeling like there could be some form of replication to that Pena moment where it's like she's still got a lot of money, as we're always saying, she's talking about retirement. Maybe she's got one foot out the door and she's gonna, you know, find herself unmotivated and it's gonna show in her performance. Like I've heard this being thrown around a little bit, and I understand why you guys might think that. But truthfully, Dom, I just look at it like she just had that and still came back
Mhm,
and looked like she wanted to tear her limb from limb, Juliana Pena, that is.
mhm,
I don't think she's going to find herself, if she can help it, facing that kind of situation ever again. I think that was the moment. That was that moment that you see in all these dominant champions' careers. Luckily for her, she was able to get it right back. And there is a question of how many more she has.
mhm.
Even with the win though, Dominic, like I think this could be it. Like I really do, because you have to look at like what is there left? What is there ahead? And
Yeah.
for her, we've been wondering that for a while. I mean, really. But as I sit here today, my confidence level that if she in a win or lose, that this would be it for her, maybe like 30%. I'll give it like a 30% chance.
Mm.
I feel like it goes up more if she loses. What do you think about that?
You think
And
her
also, it will
chances?
also, and I'll also give you a chance to respond because I know I kind of disagreed with you there. So anything you want to retort back to me as far as like Aldana's chances here?
Sure, sure. And you said a loss here, chances go up to retire, is what you were
Yeah,
saying, right?
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if she were to lose here, it I would feel really confident it's probably her last fight. I know her and Nina are having a second child as well. I saw that a couple of weeks ago. So that's another thing going on outside of the cage, outside of the octagon there. If she wins, you make a great point. Like, who else is there? Like, do you do the trilogy then with Juliana? I mean, if we already had low interest in it now, it'd probably be even lower interest then, even if she were to beat Aldana here. She would literally have just cleared out every possible bit of competition because we talk time and time again. If you look at the 135-pound division, there's just nothing really going on right now. And she's beaten everybody that even is within a sniffing distance of a title shot. And in terms of like her winning this fight, it's hard to even rebuttal back when we're talking about the greatest female fighter of all time. You make super valid points. I don't know. I don't know if it's like the motivation factor for me where I'm hesitant on Amanda. I don't know if there's something I specifically see in Aldana that is better, because there isn't. I can't say that there's something in Aldana's game right now that is better than Amanda. I mean, maybe if I really want to stretch it in terms of like being an actual more technical striker, maybe Aldana, but who's going to have more power in these exchanges? It's
Yeah.
Amanda through and through. No one carries power like Amanda Nunes in these female weight classes, man. It's an uphill battle. I realize that. My bank account realizes that on the bet for this weekend, man. But there's just there's something about this kind of just storyline going on right now. I had to just grab onto it while I could.
Yeah, you got to have more confidence in your pick, Dom, because I would argue that Aldana is a overall better striker. Like Amanda Nunes carries big power, and I think that kind of makes up for ultimately, like, I don't think she's the most technical striker in the
Right.
world.
The technical discrepancies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a nice voice to crack there, by the way. But
I was hoping we'd go by it, but that's fine.
Aldana, I think Aldana, that's her bread and butter. Now,
hmm
you do see weird fights like that main event she had with Holly Holm. I know now that's been nearly 3 years ago. But for the credit I'm giving her in striking, Dom, you remember that fight. That fight was on the feet for its entirety,
Mm.
and Aldana showed no ability to cut off the cage.
Yep.
And because of that, she just got peppered for 5 rounds.
Yes. Yes.
Now, that's a different style with
For
Holly
sure.
Holm. Amanda Nunes is not going to be playing that game. She's going to walk you down, not give you an inch, not be backing up. And if she does back up, that likely means you've done something right. That's when you saw against Juliana Pena the first time. So you're right. There is still those questions because, I mean, Dominic, that first Pena fight, I mean, that was such a different version of Nunes
It
to the
really
point
was.
to the point where you wonder, like, even though she looked so good the second time out, you're like, okay, was it like she was hurt, or was she
hmm
literally that unmotivated or that cocky,
Yeah.
thinking that she was going to win overlooking her opponent? I don't know, but it definitely still, even despite how dominant that second win was or the second fight was over Pena, it's still going to be there a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
am I necessarily going to hop on this line and put it on a parlay? I don't know yet. I don't know.
Mhm.
So because of that, I don't. Despite everything I'm saying, if I'm not doing that, then evidently a minus 320 all of a sudden ain't like that crazy to me.
Yeah. That's good points, man. I really actually think too that it could be a like a decent little scrap here potentially if it stays on the feet. If Amanda takes Aldana down and gets her down, I think she could be in for a world of trouble and
Well,
probably a
that's an
finish.
interesting battle itself. Is like
Yeah,
what Aldana's takedown defense would even look like against
we've never
Nunes,
really
because
seen it.
I don't know where that's even been really tested for her.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
look at her history, so for all we know, she might be an absolute, like, she might be like Chris Curtis trying to take her down.
yeah,
Like, just
yeah,
ain't
yeah. True.
happening. And if that happens, Dom, if a Nunes tries hard enough, that's going to gas her out. And we saw what happened when she gases out. So, it would be, would it shock me as much as the first Pena fight did? No.
No,
But
yeah,
would I still have similar feelings of just like, oh my God, like, I can't believe she did it? Yes. And it would
hmm
be an all time moment for Mexico, for Mexican MMA. And, let me ask you this before we move on, because I
sure,
heard this being talked about on the Ringer MMA show.
okay,
I say undoubtedly Amanda Nunes, best women's fighter of all time.
yeah,
I know, and I said that, and I say that with so much confidence. I mean, Dominic, you've seen my pound for pound or my all
yeah,
time list. Like, I put her up very, very high. And then I was listening to the guys on that show talk about it, and they did. Ariel brought up some interesting points, kind of talking about some of the losses she had early on, because dock points from like Anderson Silva for
sure,
the streak of losses he went on at the very end of his MMA career.
right.
So, do you think with a loss to Aldana, is her throne of goatship in any sort of danger here, in your opinion, or like is it just maybe stay to fight too long in her career?
Yeah, it'd be the latter. She's very much so the GOAT for quite some time. I mean, who's the only person that can rival her right now? Valentina Shevchenko. Oh, wait. she's not a champion right now. So
Really?
there's no one close.
I mean, am I crazy to say like Ronda could still have like an argument just because? Like,
Wow.
is that crazy? Is that crazy?
I think I'm actually shocked you said that.
I mean, I think that would be like.
I thought you would
I
have
mean,
said like a
I'm
cyborg
not.
over a Ronda.
Wait, you said Valentina. Well, Cyborg probably would. Yeah. I mean, Ronda would be like. That'd be like calling Wilt Chamberlain the best NBA player of all time.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like Wilt, when he played, was so
Right.
dominant, scored 100
Yeah.
points, in a basketball
Right.
game. But then, if he were playing in a more modern league, like would he be able to necessarily do that? Probably not. So we found that we don't know that for sure with Wilt. We know that with Ronda because once the game evolved, we just found out how limited she was. But during the time she fought, during the time she was at the top, I'm just saying. Look, am I saying that she is my number? No, I'm. Amanda Nunes is like in my top 5 of all time.
Yeah,
and I would definitely put Valentina above her in terms of like UFC career, just from the pure resume.
right. Yeah,
But I was just throwing it out there. I mean, it's kind of like maybe it's a bit like. Like in MMA terms, it would almost be it's like a legacy pick. It's like calling Conor McGregor like one of the best fighters of all time. Like
no, I get where you're at. I think Ronda was great and her run was incredible. But if I and this is other promotions aside, so if we're just talking UFC, Amanda, Valentina, Joanna, then Ronda at 4 is mine.
Wow, you put Joanna above Ronda. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Bro, you
All around fighters,
just say
man.
you hate Ronda, dude.
No, it's not that at all. It's just
I feel like
you look
I
at
feel
the
like
all
you're
around
forgetting
game.
you're forgetting Ronda's reign of dominance, my brother. Like I feel like
Tate
that's
judo throws and arm bars. I mean, I don't know if that gets it done against Valentina and Joanna's, and it didn't get it done against Amanda. Yeah, all around fighters. That's the list for me.
I mean, you could say the same thing about Joanna's game against who? Whaley against Whaley the second time against
Like
Rose
Joanna's skill
third time.
set's not as good as Ronda's.
No. That's not what I'm saying. But I mean, if you're talking about if you're making a list, right? I mean, it depends on what you're, I guess, evaluating. So I guess in a way, yeah, you could put her above her. It depends on what you, how you evaluate your top 30. Like, do you emphasize legacy and like, or resume, or you talking literal skill? I mean, yeah, I guess in a way you probably could make that argument. I feel like there's a multitude of factors, and I'm just for what Ronda was able to do for women's MMA, I feel like that puts her pretty high.
Yeah, that's where it's the legacy thing.
But again, that's a legacy thing, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
not saying everybody has to evaluate it that way.
Because
But
what
for
she
me,
did, none of those women have done.
But
if you're
even
talking-
with
you
the
know what I mean?
legacy factors being a factor, I would still put Valentina and Amanda over her.
Yeah,
But
so
that's
still
that's
2
not
of
a
the
but
3.
that's not a list being made strictly on legacy. It's like legacy,
Right.
but then also a little bit like it's legacy, resume,
Yep. Everything.
skill. It's everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, I it caught me off guard. I'll back it off. I'll back off, Dom.
I want people to let us know though. That's
But yeah,
interesting. I didn't know that was going around.
Whenever you do that little smirk you got on right now, that's the smirk of like, don't fuck with me. Like
Or
I took one step close to the sun, and you're like smirking, like, all right, motherfucker, say something again. Say something again.
He's gonna get sunburnt.
Well, I think we got a little off track here, Dominic. But anything
Co-main?
else on anything else on the main event? I guess not. We'll go on.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Co-main event, Dominic.
Mm-hmm.
We assume the winner of this fight will go on to fight Islam Makhachev, Abu Dhabi, October.
Woo.
But that's kind of where we start, Dominic, because Charles Oliveira is a plus 120 underdog. He, of course, lost his title last October to Oliveira, and I lost the most money I've ever lost on a single bet. Yeah. He is taking on the number 4 ranked Beneil Dariush, who has continued to be overlooked, disrespected, some would say, by the UFC brass. I think you could make an argument that the man had earned a title fight 2 fights ago, And not only did he have to go through one of the faster rising guys in the division in Matosh Gamrot, then he wins that and has to take on literally the man who just lost the belt, Charles Oliveira. So there is a lot of reason to like Beneil in this spot, as good as he's looked, as improved as he's looked. And I think the big factor, Dom, that kind of separates him from Charles, Beneil does it pretty clean as of late.
Yeah.
Like you go back to that wild finish he had with Drakkar Close. I mean, that was 2020.
Yeah.
Since then, it seems like as he's gone up the ladder, up the food chain, he's actually become smarter and like well-rounded. Like he's actually improved as he's gone up the ladder, which I guess is what you want, but you don't always see it that way. You know, a lot of times you see a guys look dominant against those mid tiers, and then as they climb up, it starts to get harder and harder and harder.
Yeah.
For Beneil, it feels like he's almost doing it easier than he was at a time. You know, we were just recording something for the TikTok. He's got 4 losses in his UFC career, Dom, and the last one was in 2018 against Alexander Hernandez.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
no disrespect to Hernandez. It's just like he knocked him out in 42 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you look at Edson Barboza knocked him out. Michael Chiesa submitted him. Ramsey Nijum beat him. What's Ramsey Nijum up to now? I don't know.
Right.
So, needless to say, he's had this unique kind of rise where it seems like he's gotten better along with the talent he's been put up against. But now he's going up against Charles Oliveira, like I said. A guy who is it weird, Dom, to me? Like, okay, first off, I'll admit I'm probably putting a bet on Charles Oliveira here. Let's just get that out of the way. Will I be putting as much as I did last time?
Good.
That sank. That was like the Titanic. I was rearranging chairs on the Titanic when
it was rough.
I put that in. But I am going to end up putting Oliveira on the money line here. And Dominic, a big reason for that is it not feel like, despite how great of a reign we got with Oliveira as champion,
God.
yes, I know the fashion he lost. You know, does it seem like every time we're talking about an Oliveira fight, even when he was champion and defending, he's like a slight underdog? It just seems like, despite how popular he is, because he's the most popular guy on this card, he is twice as popular as Beneil Dariush. People don't dislike Beneil Dariush. People just don't really talk about Beneil Dariush.
Yeah.
Yet Vegas doesn't. There seems to be something missing from that recipe. Like you would think, because of his popularity and how fun he is, that the line would be skewed more his direction. A lot more money coming in on him, but people tend to avoid him. Dom, why is that?
Yeah, that actually, I didn't even think about it that way. The way you just broke down the odds, former champion in Oliveira, the resume, like, don't get me wrong, Beneil's resume is great in the win streak, but if you want to talk about name value, Charles Oliveira's resume is unbelievable. And yet he is the underdog here when the only loss that he's had since 2017 is against Islam freaking Makhachev, and he's the underdog. That's crazy. But you know, at the same time, I'm happy for Beneil. At least he's finally getting some sort of respect from the masses. It seems to be able to get a favorable odds here, -140, -150 in some books even. Why is that? Are people thinking that like Charles, maybe his kind of reckless abandon will not be successful against an ultra smart, high fight IQ Beneil Dariush that Noah just talked about? You know, I want to add on to what Noah said. Not only has Beneil gotten better as he's gotten up with the competition, but it's like visibly, like you witness it as a, like, what's the word I'm thinking of? As a viewer. Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking of another one. Viewer is what we'll work with. I'm not doing synonyms today. As a viewer, you even see him getting better and adding wrinkles to his game. And he still almost knocked out Matosh Gamrot. I mean, right? I mean, he knocked him down, rocked him, had him in danger, didn't get overzealous, fought smart, gets a dominant decision. He could very much do something like that against Du Bronx here. And another point I want to piggyback off of, Noah, when we talk about Charles being an underdog in every single one of these fights, in every single one of those fights, what has he had to do? He's gotten knocked down. He's gotten damn near finished, and then he comes back and wins. Can he do that against someone like Beneil Dariush, who has been getting so smart fight by fight? This is, you know, we literally have a title fight main event Yet this is 1,000,000% the people's main event. You get a lot of people's main events from week to week on some of these fight night cards. Rarely do you get one on a pay-per-view. This is one of them right here.
Yeah, I'm shocked the UFC didn't make this 5 rounds because they made Bilal and Gilbert
Yeah.
Burns 5 rounds. You feel like
Yeah.
this one fits that bill completely.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads me to saying, Dom, I don't really know what to expect from this fight.
True.
Like what you just said. Okay, Charles Oliveira's fight style, right? He is a guy that's constantly come back, especially as he's been champion and earned the belt and all that. He was a guy that got knocked down, found a way to get back up and finish the fight in very fun fashion. That's what built him a name for himself, was like,
Yep.
you couldn't get rid of this guy. And then Islam came in and honestly starched him. I mean, it
Yeah.
was tough.
Islam
Like
looked amazing.
yeah, he looked fantastic. Charles really didn't have a second of that fight where he looked like he was in control or winning at all. But Neil has had those kind of fights, the Drakkar Close fight I just mentioned. He's had these fights where it's a little bit more brawler heavy, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more reckless abandon, that nice little word you threw out there. But again, we have not seen that in 3 years, and what we've been seeing since then is a guy much more composed, much calmer, doesn't let the moment get too big for him.
Mm-hmm.
Dominic, if I read off some of these wins, and really he's not even been like super active. He's really been picking
Yeah.
and choosing his fights the right way. The Matosh Gamrot fight. Didn't he come in with some sort of injury? Didn't he have a fucked up foot or ankle?
Yeah, there was a foot injury, I
I
believe,
think he
last year.
like broke his foot in that fight, which pretty crazy if that's the
Mm.
case. You look at the Tony Ferguson decision win, and I know that's a compromised Tony Ferguson, maybe not the same, a shock worn Tony Ferguson. How about a split decision over Carlos Diego Ferreira? Before that, he knocked out Scott Holtzman. Then before that, he knocked out Drakkar Close. So really, those last 3 fights, you see the growth in his game because it takes him a split decision to beat Diego Ferreira. Then he goes on and dominates Tony Ferguson, and then goes in and really handles Matosh Gamrot.
That
Like
was
you just
surprising a little
see
bit.
the growth. But Dominic, I just read off his last 5 wins. To me, you cannot compare those to the kind
No.
of gauntlet Charles
No.
Oliveira has been put through. And I understand why. I'm not. I think there's a definite reason why people are leaning Beneil's way. And truthfully, Dominic, I think a big reason why we find Charles with the underdog, slapped onto him, is because when you are a fighter that thrives under the chaos and thrives under sort of willing himself back to a victory, being able to take more punishment than the other guy, being resourceful when in danger. That's a dangerous recipe to put a lot of trust in, because if you're a guy who is known for getting hurt, coming back and winning a fight,
Mm.
what happens when you get hurt and don't come back? And that's what
Yeah.
you get with the Makachev fight, which of course was the time that I chose to make the biggest bet of my career.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's really the short story here for why I think Oliveira, even as the bigger fan favorite, even as he's been for the last couple of years as champion and chasing the belt and all that, that's where I think the oversight appears to be with the Vegas, with the odds makers, is I think that a lot of people have a hard time trusting him and thinking this might be the one where it goes off the rails. Does that seem like a fair assessment, Dom?
Yeah, I would say so. I really would. This is one of those fights, man, that like it almost in a way feels overdue just because of what these guys have done and all these streaks that they've went on. But nevertheless, they're here now, and the winner is in. Well, especially
Let
if
me
it's
ask you
Beneil.
that. Yeah, let me
Yeah,
ask you that,
yeah,
because I've seen some confusion around the fact that the UFC, you have this pay-per-view that probably isn't going to sell very well, on
yeah.
pay-per-view.
Right.
You have that. This is your biggest fight on the card.
Yep.
a lot of people have been confused. Like, why aren't the UFC like coming out and saying this is the number one contender fight? They did it for, like I said, um, Gilbert and Bilal
Wow.
last month. You've seen them do that time and time again, where they'll kind of announce a fight as being a number one contender fight. Robert Whitaker taking on Dricus du Plessis in July is getting that tag, and that's International Fight Week. That card don't need no help. So I was kind of wondering that, and I think one reason why that is because I'm not sure the UFC are going to be as committed to the idea of that being a number one contender bout if Charles Oliveira wins.
Yes.
He's coming off a pretty dominant loss to Islam Makhachev. But Dominic, the more I thought about it, is there any chance that the UFC actually might be less concerned with an Oliveira win and more concerned with the Beneil Dariush win, a guy who, despite the accumulation of wins, the win streak that he's sort of on, does not exactly have a rabid fan base behind him. He is not known for his ability on a microphone. Even his fight style is not near as, you know, rock'em sock'em chaotic as maybe it's shown in some of those crazier fights he's been in. He's definitely played a more risk averse style and it's worked out for him. Do you feel like there's a chance that even though we all kind of think, oh, it's probably because the UFC doesn't want to, do Charles and Islam too, at the end of the day, that's probably a bigger fight than Islam Beneil, right?
Yeah, I think it is a bigger fight. This is where my head's at. If Beneil wins, I think he's in. I think he's gonna get it in October. I saw, I don't know if it was with MMA fighting or they posted something about him though, regardless. And he had said that he had discussed this with the UFC and he was essentially told that he would get it if he wins. He said if he does not, that he would riot and take a page out of Justin Gaethje's book. I'm paraphrasing, but that's kind of what he said. If Charles wins, this is where it gets interesting. Because like you said, Islam's Abu Dhabi in October. It's pretty clear. Okay. Well, if Charles wins, I think there's a hell of a lot more pressure on Alexander Volkanovski on International Fight Week. Because if Charles wins, I don't think he'll get it because I think they would do Volk versus Islam 2 if Volkanovski can beat Yair. And also, I think the winner of Gaethje and Poirier at the end of July would get in before Charles Oliveira does. That's
Wow.
how I'm feeling where everybody is standing right now. So I just think if Beneil wins, he's in. And then we kind of see what happens in July with Volk winning and then Dustin and Justin. And then Charles is kind of waiting to see what goes on.
That's interesting, Dom, because I think we are way off. Like we are on
What do you
opposite
got?
sides of the
Paint your
spectrum
picture.
here. I think Charles has a better chance of getting a title fight from this than Beneil does.
Oh, man. That
That's
just sucks
not
for
based off
Beneil.
my opinion. That's not based off of or it is based off my opinion. I mean, it's not because of how I feel about Charles. It's not because of how I feel. Like I don't want this to come off like I don't like Beneil. Beneil's been one of the guys we've been ride or die
Yes.
for. That's why it's hard because now he's going up against another guy I've been it's tough.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with the way I feel about those two guys. This is just something that I've been trying to get a better read on. We all are sitting here going, if Beneil wins, he gets a title fight. Like it seems obvious. You don't have another guy who feels like a real threat or challenge right now. Like, sure, you have that Gaethje Poirier fight, but I don't think the winner of that necessarily warrants a title fight, even if they have the BMF title, whatever. But the UFC don't always go off of who's the most deserving,
Yeah, we talked about that recently.
I mean, how many times are we going to go through that same song and dance before we realize that, as Dana said last week, there's a lot of factors that go into somebody getting a title fight. And truthfully, I don't know if whether they deserve it or not is in the top 5 or 6 options for who they pick. I hope if Beneil wins, he gets it. But right now, if Charles wins, I'd feel very confident that they headline Abu Dhabi with
The
those two.
rematch.
If Beneil wins, I would still lean that direction, but it would not surprise me if the UFC tried to find an alternative. Perhaps that Volkanovski Islam fight would then come to fruition. I think if Charles won and they gave the title fight to either Dustin or Justin, I think that'd be a little crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah. The only reason I felt that way is because it's somebody that hasn't fought Islam yet.
Maybe
That was the only
Dustin,
reason.
maybe Dustin, because Dustin would actually have the win streak. Or well, no, I guess Justin would too because he fought Fazayev.
Yep.
Well, maybe you're right because they would have had 2 wins since yeah, you might have a point there,
There's a
Dom.
lot going on in this month and a half, dude,
But
for this division.
I think the winner of this fight is the front runner for the next title fight. But it does worry me. The fact that they're not coming out and saying that tells me that they are not as convinced as we are that that's the case here.
Yeah. Oh man, I know it's a Monday thing, but poor Beneil
I
Dariush.
hate to say that because I feel like that's a bad like this is kind of like like it's a
Yeah.
bad place to
Yeah.
be.
Mm.
This is a great fight. And you know what? To go back to what I said about like I don't know what to expect here. I don't know what to expect in terms of who's going to win,
Nope.
who's going to how is it going to be dominant? Is it going to be back and
Right.
forth?
Right.
For Dominic, I got this weird feeling. And
Ooh.
also the style clash, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
Oliveira, wild fights. Beneil been more clean as of late.
Yeah.
I have this weird feeling
Talk
that
to me.
this fight's gonna get kind of crazy. Like I think this is gonna be
Kind of
back
freaky.
and forth. I think this fight's actually gonna be. I don't think it's gonna end very quick. Like I think this is gonna be a fight that both guys kind of walk away like with at least their stock raised because of it. I, th-
Maybe a little
I,
fight
I
of the night.
I got
Maybe?
this weird feeling that we might be talking about this fight at the end of the year, Dom. I don't know.
Oh.
It's one of those fights that has the names that people cling to that could get that kind of attention to it. But it's not necessarily a fight people are talking about as like, ooh, this could be a fight of the year. The Gaethje Poirier.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of fights that sneak up on you, though. And I think this
Yeah.
one could do it.
I love that. I love when you go out on a bridge like that, baby.
Yeah.
Come on.
Let's get on into the rest of UFC 289. Like I said, not the most stacked pay-per-view, but Dominic, I do think there's some pretty fun fights on here.
Yes.
I think it starts with Dan Ige and Nate Landwehr.
Oh, it starts and stops right there. That's where we're going next.
It
No, for
starts
sure.
and stops. Nate the Train is quickly becoming one of the most electric guys to watch in the whole company. And while Dan Ige is not a guy who's going to be able to get on a microphone and throw down some bars like Nate Landwehr does,
Yeah.
I think he's arguably got just as fun of a fight style. Dan Ige freaking comes to bang. Like what's that basketball commentator that always says bang?
Oh yeah, Mike Breen.
Yeah,
Bang.
yeah. That's Dan Ige right there. So I look at this fight and I think it's going to be fireworks. I don't know how long it's going to go. It might go quick. Nate Landwehr has been knocked out twice in like less than half a round. That's happened before. So
Yeah.
it's definitely capable with Dan Ige, the guy who put away. He's got a knockout in like 10 seconds in the UFC. That was a while back. But yeah, going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not flying kneeing Nate Landwehr, he tends to win. As a matter of fact, it's 4-0 when he does not get flying kneed in the face in the UFC. But no, I got to bring this up here. Okay, this is my focal point. This is where my head is for this fight. On paper, it's a sick, stylistic matchup. Could be a fight of the night contender. Should it go 3 rounds? Nate loves to bang. Dan loves to bang. But tell me if you're with me here, and if not, tell me where you're at. This is giving me the same type of vibes as Dan Ige's last fight when he welcomed Damon Jackson into the top 15 and made easy work of Damon Jackson. Now Dan Ige's fighting back again, letting someone else get this chance to hop in. And is it just too much of a leap too soon for Nate Landwehr like it was for Damon Jackson. That's the storyline for me in this fight.
Yeah, that's a great observation, and I think I would argue that might be the most likely outcome right now.
Mm.
Like, it's Nate Landwehr. You look at some of those fights, man, the David Onama fight, like, he both won and lost that fight, like, 20 times,
Yeah.
and he shoulda just won it the first time. Like, he literally let himself go through that gauntlet just to put on a show, which is awesome. I love a guy like that. He's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Dan Ige ain't gonna play those games, man.
Mm-mm.
He ain't gonna play those games, and we've yet to see Dan Ige really be like hurt in a fight.
Yeah,
Like,
he's a dog, dude.
the Calvin Cater main event that he kind of took. I think that was short notice for him, or maybe they stepped up to the main event short notice. That was like one of the early COVID cards.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Calvin definitely got the better of him for 4 of the 5 rounds, but Ige just kept on coming, never really got hurt too bad. Definitely was getting beat up, but like kept coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here I just have more confidence in Ige's durability than I do Landwehr's. That even though Landwehr has shown an incredible endurance
Which,
over his
yeah,
last few fights, you look at the history with those flying knee knockouts, and it does kind of make you worried. If a Dan Ige bomb lands on him like it did Gavin Tucker, I don't know, man.
Yeah, if Nate can come in and win that fight, that would be crazy. And I
But
think
no,
even
that's
Ige's like,
it's weird about with Dan Ige, Dom, because he feels like a guy who has just hit his ceiling like already. Like,
yeah,
he is who he
yeah,
is, because if you put him up against a guy who's ranked like 2 through 8, what is Ige ranked right now?
he is number 13.
Okay, so like if you went 2 through 9, 2 through 8,
Mm-hmm.
he's probably not winning the majority of those matchups. But
Right.
then if you go 14, 15, and then
Anyone else?
unranked,
Yeah.
it's like he not
Good
only
luck.
wins, he kind of starches them
Yeah.
like he did to Damon Jackson. So that could end up. It feels like this has the makings of Dan Ige coming in here and kind of showing why there's levels to this game.
Yeah, that very much could be it. Next for me, prelim headliner, Imavov Chris
Yeah,
Curtis,
had to
number
talk about
12
that one.
versus number 14. Interesting one. Not on the main card, but they put Canadian Town on the main card, so I understand. This is a good prelim headliner here. And I'm struggling here, Noah, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm looking at the betting odds. Again, we're not doing a full blazing bet segment on today's show because we're recording it on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday. But during my first initial looks at the lines, I'm looking, I'm feeling like Imavov money line. Imavov money line's like poking me in the head to try and take a gander at it, take a stab at it. I get to checking, and he's around a minus 150 right now on a lot of these books. And don't get me wrong, he's a really, really good talent, but he did just lose his biggest test yet, and it was to Sean Strickland in a 5-round main event. Well, Sean Strickland is like best friends and training partners with Chris Curtis, so that's got to be of benefit to Chris. One, Chris's boxing is very clean, very crisp. It's not that Imavov's necessarily like he's a good striker, but I wouldn't say he's as polished as Chris can be. And if Imavov tries to grapple, Noah talked about it earlier, Chris Curtis's takedown defense is unbelievable. Now, maybe the only kind of gray area that I didn't touch on is in the middle, if they try and clinch and whatnot with Imavov. But all of those factors and things going through my head is what led me to at least not just yet hop on that money line. I think this is going to be a bit harder of a fight for Imavov than some people are thinking. I've seen a lot of people showing love and tailing Imavov, and I was on it, but now I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. There's some X's and O's that I think Chris Curtis can compete here and win this fight. This is a weird one.
Yeah, I don't see myself touching this one. If I'm being
Yeah.
honest, like both guys have just showed varying degrees of skill in their career. Like, you look at how Imavov fought Strickland, and he just looked a step behind
Yeah.
the entire way. But then you look at how he fought like Edmund Shabazian, Ian Heinisch. I mean, he looked like an absolute killer.
Yeah.
Chris Curtis knocks out Joaquin Buckley, had that really good decision win over Rodolfo Vieira, the Jack Hermanson fight. Like, ugh.
That was weird.
And
Yeah.
then even last time. Well, the Kelvin Gastelum fight was. I mean, I thought he won that
Yeah.
one. To be honest
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
So really, it's just that Jack Hermanson one. So Chris Curtis is just a tough out no matter what, and
Mm-hmm.
he's a guy who, if you can't take him down, like, well, Imavov better be ready to outstrike Chris Curtis. That's what
Yes.
it comes down to, because I don't see
Yep.
him taking him down. I'm
Yeah.
just being honest. So I just don't necessarily like. I don't feel like I know enough. Is it weird how like I've watched every one of Imavov's UFC fights? That's 6 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and yet I sit here and I really just don't have a full read on the guy.
No, that's
Because like
accurate.
the way he fought Sean Strickland just looked a lot, and even Joaquin Buckley before that, like that wasn't exactly an exciting fight.
Mm-hmm.
Just completely different version of the guy that fought Shabazian and Heinisch. Like, and
Yeah.
yes, I know he actually debuted in a loss against Phil Halls, but I think that was on short notice. You know, he's just hot and cold, and you know, Chris Curtis has had a little bit of that as well for me. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah. That's like the weirdest one for me. So I just wanted to talk about that one. You got any more? Anything on the prelims poking you, sticking out to you?
No, not really. I was just gonna follow. I was gonna ask you one more question about
Mm-hmm.
Imavov. Like, do you feel like he gets the better of the striking in this one?
Man, it's interesting because we've seen Chris's boxing be very crisp. He
No.
can get hit, but he's still relatively defensively sound, Like it's kind of weird sometimes what you get with Chris. And he just had that fight of the night contender with Kelvin Gastelum just in April. So I mean, that's only 2 months ago at this point. So that could be something to think about as well. But I don't know, man. I just think if he can hold off the clinch, hold off any takedowns, tit for tat in the striking, Chris can win this fight. And that's why it's an odd one.
It
And
seems
it's an
like he's more
important one too.
dependent. He's more dependent on his striking than Imavov is.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I don't. Again, and with that takedown defense being as good as it is, like, good luck.
yeah. It's good points.
Anything else for you, Dom?
There's good fights, but nothing of note. I think maybe come Monday we have some recaps, but it's decent prelims though.
It's so decent we didn't even talk about any of them but one. So with that, let's talk about the PFL 4.
Or whatever there is to talk about of it, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair, Dom. That's happening today as you're watching Thursday. Featherweights and light heavyweights. We said we'd give you guys the full rundown, what to expect here. Um, hopefully, no more failed drug tests
Yeah,
because
that's step one.
we have 10, Dom, 10 fighters that are dealing with that. So now you have a main event: Brendan Loughnane taking on Jesus Pinedo at the featherweight division. I guess your feature bout is your top light heavyweight bout. That's now Martine Hamlet taking on Sam Key. There is some talent across the board that I'm excited about. Movlid Haibulaev and Nikome taking on Tyler Diamond. Bubba Jenkins on the main card. Josh Silveira on the main card taking on Dylan Monte. I like that fight. I also like, I actually don't like Marlon Moraes being on this card. Dominic, I'll tell you an interesting little tidbit I heard from a Marlon Moraes interview.
Oh
He was
boy.
asked about the idea of retirement. He said, I know right now is not the right time.
Well,
Which, again, I'm not one to tell someone when it's time. It just is like, it feels like if he doesn't think that now, he's never going to.
I mean, especially considering he has already retired once. So how is it like yeah, that's a weird one. I love the guy, but I'm worried at this
Yeah.
point. He these fights, he's not just losing, he's getting like I almost said destroyed, but some of these fights he does look good until he doesn't.
Well,
So
like the Loughnane fight, it wasn't his chin that let him down. It was his damn legs. Like, it's just his whole body is starting to just
that
break
one
down.
with Brendan was like the first time in this 6-fight losing streak where we've seen him lose a fight the entire time. Like, there was really nothing. And I think that says a lot about Brendan. Don't get us wrong. He was our Joey last year for our fighter of the year. But now it's like, okay, you're losing to these guys in the PFL who are technically the step below the UFC, and now you're getting just clean swept and finished. Gabriel Braga, not the name of Brendan Loughnane, but he's fucking 10-0. And he's a very complete, good, solid fighter. Experience in UAE Warriors, LFA. He's 2-0 in the PFL. I'm not saying, maybe this is the time where Marlon doesn't get finished, but this is not just some like opportunity for him to bounce back and be able to make the playoffs because it's a lesser known guy. This is still going to be a tough fight. And it's just, I don't know, man. Sometimes these guys got to know when to give it up. And if he loses here, then what? Still just keep saying the same thing? Like, I don't know. It's a weird one. But
to
Gabriel
me,
Braga can make a name for himself
the
here.
takeaway from that last fight for me wasn't the fact that, that's the first time Marlon's been beaten from start to finish. Because I don't know if that's, the Song Yadong one I know was quick, but Song Yadong pretty much dominated him for like 2 minutes. But to me, the bigger takeaway is the fact that like before it was like he looked good, but it was his chin. This time it's other parts of his body that can't take the punishment. His legs just got butchered and he was done. Got finished via leg kicks. Like, I know that happens, and Brendan Loughnane looked great. It's just, again, it's like, man, before you could just say, the guy looks good, but his chin's just gone. Now it's like, his whole body's failing him at this point. How about Impa Kazaganai? I'm excited about him being on this card.
He's officially in the tournament now too.
Yeah, so I like to see what he could do here against Tim Karen. Chris Wade Ryoji Kudo is a fun little prelim bout. Interesting, they tried to sneak in that women's featherweight bout and thought we wouldn't notice. Abigail Montez and Hester Akeem, or Brandy Hester. Sorry, I was reading the names of two
together.
different fighters. So yeah, I really don't have like a ton to chew into here. It's kind of a shame, right?
For you, Noah, this is my main question. With the suspensions and people being out and all these new additions to the light heavyweight division, new additions or not, is Martin Hamlet, who is number one, had a first round finish, 6 points, a quick 6. Is he just like the runaway at this point for this division? Or do you still think there's someone there that can maybe like put a stop to it? Because now he's fighting a literal, Sam Key is in the tournament now and he's 8-7. So like, I don't know, this could be, because Martin Hamlet has been there year after year, just not been able to win the big one. But now it's like, dude, everybody eliminated themselves for you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go that far. Maybe it is, Dom, but I literally had not even considered that until you mentioned it. So I refuse to just accept the fact that this tournament's done and dusted. If Impa, give my man Impa a good performance
I would love
here.
to see him do it, man.
Impa, how about also, I forgot, I skipped past his name on here. PFL debut, I believe, for Andrew Sanchez, ain't it?
I think so. I think it is.
Andrew Sanchez fought in the UFC for a while. I think he's a fun guy. Like, someone is going to have to present a challenge to Martin Hamlet. Because you're right, Martin Hamlet's good. He's been around in the PFL for a while, too. But I refuse to believe that this tournament's like I'm not handing it to. I'm not handing him the $1 million check yet, Dom, like you are.
All right. That's fair. Really, other than that,
at featherweight, like, is there anybody that you look at and go like, okay, they can maybe challenge Loughnane?
No, I think there's definitely still like, of course, Bubba just lost to him last year, but I still like Bubba. I still like Chris Wade. The fight I'm most looking forward to in terms of like competitiveness is Chris Wade and Ryoji Kudo. Right now, it's like really far down on the prelims, which I thought was kind of odd, but I think that's obviously important. Both guys are coming off losses. They're trying to get into the playoffs. They got to do something big here, and they have to do it against each other. So I think that's the most like important fight when you're looking at both guys. But I don't know. The way Brendan's looking right now, he could go back to back. Could.
Dude, I just realized I skipped past Josh Silveira at light heavyweight too. Like
that, maybe
dude,
that could be your guy.
We ain't handing this $1 million check over to Martin. Come on, Martin. You got to do better than that. We need a second first round finish.
Yeah, 2 quick 6s is impressive stuff.
Quick 6. I couldn't remember what the little phrase was. I knew you'd remember. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for PFL. Probably more to talk about on Monday.
Yep.
Let's talk about a couple fight announcements real quick, Dom. The rumored card for Nashville. I don't want to jinx it.
I don't know what the holdup is.
Dominic's always getting so weirded out about how long they take to announce it. I think that's just par for the course with these events in person, Dom. Like, I don't know why you like the last time they were rumored to go to Nashville, they still went to Charlotte, like, because you were like, oh, it's too late. We ain't going to Nashville.
I
But then
know.
they went to Charlotte. So, like, obviously they're still announcing
And
them.
they sold the bitch out too. So like,
It was
it
the
don't
most
matter.
successful fight night in American fight night in UFC history. Like,
Yeah.
crazy. That could have been us in Nashville, but no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So August 5th, Billy Q back taking on Damon Jackson. Also back. Also two guys that need a bounce back after being knocked the fuck out.
What an intro to that fight announcement.
No, but I like that fight a lot. Billy Q, Damon Jackson, two very good fighters that just haven't been able to take that jump into like the top 15. And I'm fully in support of these two just kind of duking it out. It's a fun fight. Gonna fill out that card for Nashville or wherever it might be. No jinx.
Yeah.
Also, Dominic, the return of Chris Weidman, and this is where I'm gonna actually ask you your first question. He's taking on Brad Tavares.
Yeah.
UFC 292 in Boston, August 19th. Dominic, is it safe to say that no matter which way this fight ends, it ends with some man tears?
Yeah. I would say so. I think that's
Yeah.
fair. I saw this when you sent it, and I don't know, man. Like, again, we're not in the place to tell people to hang it up. They're the ones doing the fight shit we never have. I respect the hell out of all these men and women, but not only are you haven't been looking too good the past couple years, but it's been, you know, it's been 2 years since your leg snapped in half. If you're Chris Weidman here, and the only competition he's had is a couple like grappling matches. I know he's been on like Fight Pass and stuff. Brad Tavares, though, very much so still like competing with these guys regardless of if he's winning or losing. Obviously he just lost to Bruno Silva, had that crazy ass fight with Dricus du Plessis. Like, if that same type of Tavares that fought Dricus comes in here against Chris Weidman, I don't like that recipe for a 38-year-old guy that's just been through the ringer in Weidman, man. So it's a weird one. It caught me off guard. Wasn't expecting it, but I know Chris never truly hung it up. He always left that door open, said he was going to be back. It's a very drastic injury to come back from. And not only are we going to see Chris Weidman return, we're going to see a Conor McGregor return off of a very similar injury this year as well. Like, two guys coming off of detrimental injuries 2 years later. How can both look? We get to see Chris Weidman first, who unfortunately is older and been through the ringer a bit more than Conor as well.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I was like, wow, they really don't want to give Chris like an easy one to come back to. Like, they're really risking like this just being very sad.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. Like, I'm going to be
Nobody wants
rooting for
that.
Weidman here, like you have to. Like, I like Brad Tavares. I don't envy him being in this position, but he's a professional. They're both professionals. They get it. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like this could end up being just really sad. Like for him to come back to fight, spend all this time, and he was still very confident in his ability, believing he could still make a run. And then he comes back, and if he were to like get starched just like super quick, just like after all that,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if he's going to win. I'm not very confident he's going to win, but I hope that we see the best version we can possibly see out of Chris Weidman at this point in time.
That's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, I really don't have much more to add to it. It's just like I'm not mad at it because he wants to prove it. Like, I mean, it could be
Yeah.
an amazing story.
It could.
Dominic, if he wins, I mean, talk about an all-time moment in Boston.
Yeah.
He gets that win. Like, it's going to be emotional. He's going to be emotional. But then there is a risk that you have to take on by getting that kind of moment. And that's that Brad Tavares could come in here and fucking shut that down real quick.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. But that's it, Dominic. We only have one more segment left to go, and that's the segment we always end the show on, closing statements, where we can talk about anything and everything, MMA related or not. So, Dominic, did you come prepared with some recommendations for things I should do in Florida? I know you've not been to PCB, but I would like to know if there's anything in particular that just your excursions to a beach or two, maybe things I should be prepared for, etc.
There's this one place, and again, it's been a long time, long time. But it's like some sort. It was like up and coming at the time we were there, so it's older, not older, but it's obviously people have been there now since. But it's like I feel like the word pier is in it, but it's not an actual pier with like going out over the ocean. But it's just this big area with restaurant shops, people out and about, nightlife type area. So I'm sure you'll get to witness that and see that.
Wait, you've been to PCB?
Yes, not a full vacation, but we have drove from
Oh, I
Destin
know what
to
you're
there.
talking about. The
Yeah.
pier, I don't know if it's called Pier Park or it's
Yeah,
something.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
So
I
that's
know
like
that.
the only
It
thing I can remember.
kind of gave me the vibes of like the island in Gatlinburg.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
very
that's
accurate.
okay. Yeah, so I do plan on going there.
Mhm.
Anything beach related? I'm not much of a beach person, but I'm tired of being pasty, Dom. I
Mm.
gotta get some sun.
Gotta be careful out there though now.
I
You know,
know.
Mamaw would be giving you a whole lesson if she was on this show right now. But
Dude,
you
I
know,
know she would literally give me that like SPF like 600 or
100.
something.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, dude, though, like when we're out on the beach, we don't really do nothing. We just enjoy the water, lay out, just soak it all in, the
Yeah, I'm
sand.
not swimming, but I do plan on just kind of drinking on the
Dabble in, build
beach.
us a sandcastle, build
You
something
know,
in the
can I
sand.
tell you a story while we're, kind of ending the show
That's what
here?
this is for. Come on.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be nice to ask, be courteous, but
Yeah.
whatever, fucking asshole. So freshman year of college,
Okay.
and you might remember this. I went to Myrtle Beach.
Okay. Hmm.
So it was for my business fraternity. We took a business development trip to Myrtle
Sure.
Beach,
Yeah. Yeah.
a conference, if you will.
Yeah. Of course.
Me and the people I rode with, we got there at about 8 in the morning.
Okay.
And mind you, this was like we drove there overnight, got there
Yep.
at 8 in the morning, and we were planning to leave, I think, the next day.
Oh
We did a
wow.
lot of those 1 day trips. We did the 1 day trip to Canada, like that.
Going all the
Uh,
way to Myrtle Beach is a long trip for
yeah.
just a
So
day.
yeah. So we get there at 8 in the morning, immediately pull out the thermos, put as much shitty vodka as I can in it and lemonade. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the drink of choice. And I'm talking like a big ass thermos.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. So most people start getting there probably around like 11, 10:30, 11, that
Hmm.
time. When I tell you, Dom, I was I was so drunk
Mm.
at this time that I was yelling at people saying like, dude, why is this sand so hard to walk on? Have you ever had issues walking on sand?
No, like even sober, it's not easy in some places.
Okay,
So
I'm glad you
yeah.
because I
Yeah.
I was kind of like, okay, I know I was fucked up, but like sand is not. But
You were
dude, I
like,
was
this
like,
shit is quicksand, not
but dude,
regular
I was
sand.
like, I was barrel rolling like all around the fucking place. Like I could not get my footing. So maybe
Yeah.
a part of it was
Of
drunkenness,
course.
but I feel like I should have been given somewhat of a pass there.
Yeah.
But then, speaking of sunscreen,
Uh,
this is top three dumbest things I've
oh
probably done.
no. Mm.
So I'm out there and someone's passing around sunscreen. It's the spray on kind.
Yep.
Okay.
Hmm.
So again, I'm not planning to swim. I'm smoking a cigar,
Hmm.
drinking my thermos. I mean, I'm fucked up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I take the spray on sunscreen. I spray it all on me,
Hmm.
rub it in, and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, like an hour goes by. I'm wearing like sunglasses and like a fedora. Don't ask about the fedora. Tyler can tell
I'm
you about.
visualizing it and I
Tyler
love it.
Tyler can tell you about the fedora. It was a thing, It was,
Yeah.
but about an hour goes by. And I'm like, man, that sun is like really bright, like
Yeah.
really bright. Like I'm
Yeah.
getting a little blinded here.
Yeah.
Another hour goes by. I have like one eye shut, and I'm like, damn. I'm like, that fucking sun is.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't see. Another hour goes by, and then both eyes are shut. I'm like,
You're
bro,
blind.
I need to get out of this sun. I'm like,
Yeah.
the sun.
Yeah.
I'm like, the sun's too bright. That I'm literally still like thinking that the sun is doing this.
Yeah.
Well, someone comes up to me and goes, dude, why are your eyes so red? Dominic, I put on that sunscreen and did rub it on my face. it's not sweat resistant. So when I
Oh.
started sweating, that sunscreen just started going straight into my eyes.
Oh, okay.
But my dumbass is sitting there like, why is the sun so
Did it
bright?
not burn? Like you couldn't
Oh,
feel the
it burned.
stinginess? Okay.
No, it burned, but I thought it was the
You just
sun.
didn't real okay.
So then we go to check
Oh.
in to our rooms because we couldn't even check in when we got there. So we were just like on the beach.
Yeah.
So we go to the lobby to check in. My eyes are the only thing redder than my eyes is probably my skin.
Yeah. There we go.
I sit down on this couch in there, put my fedora over my face, passed out for like 2 hours. I woke up and everybody had left me. I was just sitting there
By yourself.
in the lobby,
In the lobby.
took a fat nap with a fedora over my face.
Wonder what people were thinking walking by, checking in their rooms.
They were
and
probably
stuff.
thinking like this fucking grizzly bear is in hibernation and I better not wake him up.
Oh, how bad was that sunburn for about the next week?
So I woke up and my eyes were good.
Oh, that's good.
But that was the one time in my life I've taken a cold shower. I could not do a hot shower.
Oh, it just burns.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it was a lot of pain.
So at least you know now for this week, if your eyes start burning, you're sweating the shit in, so you got to rub it in better.
Look,
you
my
know?
mom and stepdad tan every day. That's like they take pride in their tans.
They won't even have sunscreen on. Yeah.
No, my mom's giving us SPF 30. She's like, I only use like SPF 15. I'm like, oh, so you basically just throw water on your skin or like, yeah, stop
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I told her like our whole plan is like, oh, we're gonna hang out at the beach all week. We're gonna walk to some of the like bar restaurants on the beach and like eat and drink and stuff. I already know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna be all about doing that the first day, and then I'm gonna get burnt to a crisp, and then I'm never going to the beach again the rest of the week.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, we're gonna find out.
Yeah. Stay tuned. My name's Noah Baker. That's Dominic Slee. We are but just two of the below average Joes, and we'll see you guys on Monday.